set of standards that look at the three key aspects of video production. Number one, planning a project. It could be a commission that you get from somebody, or it could be something you want to produce for yourself. But you have to have a strategy. You have to have a vision to begin with. You have to know what resources you're going to need. You have to assemble those. The second domain is obviously shooting your raw footage, sitting people down for interviews, recording the video work, making sure you have good quality sound and video. And then once you have all your raw materials together, the third phase is where all the magic happens, and that is editing and post-processing. So that's learning how to trim things up, fit them together, add some special effects, and all the bells and whistles that just take it to the next level. And the beauty of this being a repeatable class, sometimes I'll have kids that will come back who have already been in the first semester. My goal is, no matter where the kids are when they come into the course, is to encourage them to up their game, to improve the quality of what they produce, as well as the tools that they have to go about producing videos. So now I'm going to let you hear from some of the students I have right now, talk about why they decided to take the course and what are some of the most valuable things they've learned in the course of taking the course. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Connor. I participate in the MVCSD class at Mount Vernon High School. I joined the MVCSD class because I've had really good experiences with the coinciding MVCSD club that occurs on Wednesday nights from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. I would say the biggest, most overarching thing that I've learned, period, I've learned a lot of collaboration skills, and the biggest one that I've learned is be patient. Your time will come. I'm not really a very patient soul, and this is helping me with that.
I joined the class because I wanted to get more comfortable on camera and make new friends. The most valuable thing I've learned is that teamwork is very important.
I joined this video production class because I actually joined MVT right when we made it a thing. And then when I saw we do it as a class, I really wanted to join it and see what we could do. I really enjoy doing like video production when we had a craft digital before. I'm in digital arts, and one of the big things I've learned here is just how produce stuff on time in a timely manner, and just more in-depth skills for video production in general.
I joined the class because I thought it would be fun. I like creative things, and also I had a friend who was already in it. Something valuable I learned about it was organizing with people and also learning editing.
My name is Dominic Muscato, and I joined video production thinking that it would just be like a cool little extra class that you could just film your own videos and then just edit it on a computer. I had no idea, however, that it was going to be MVTV. And so it was kind of a pleasant surprise knowing that I just joined MVTV. And I'm really glad I did take it because I've had a lot of fun this year. Getting to make the news for Mount Vernon is pretty cool. And I've learned how to edit my own videos, work with friends. I've learned how to use a green screen. I've learned about lighting. Honestly, there's a great market for video production right now, and I'm really glad that I got to learn a lot about it.
Or look at someone and wonder what is going on inside their head.
Hi, my name is Joe McClure, and I'm currently the advisor of Educator. A little brief history. Educator has been around since the 1920s. It originally started called The Forum, but it was a school newspaper. Since the 20s, it has run its full circle of different avenues. In the early 80s, the Educator actually was attached in the Mount Vernon News, and you receive these on Friday. It was a great way for students to get their message out. It turned back into still competing the newspaper, but then we actually just printed in-house, or we found a publisher that would print for us. In the early 80s up to currently 2000, it turned into a Educator Journal magazine that the students published. 10 years ago, we had some budget cuts, and this was one of the first classes that we actually had to eliminate. This year it's back, and it's back with a lot of different avenues. And you will currently see in just a few seconds of the different aspects that the Jacket Journal is doing. Currently, we are publishing our stories in-house on the school website, but it is our goal either at the end of this semester or the beginning of next year to actually go back to publishing a hard newspaper as well as publishing online with our stories. So don't take my word for it. Let me show you a little bit about what our class is doing.
Alrighty, so I am currently working on some drawings for the 22 yearbook. And so what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be taking artwork from the 1927 and 1922 yearbooks, and we are going to make a modern rendition, and we are going to put both side by side in the yearbook.
Jacket Journal and I will be composed of short 60-second videos. These videos are meant to be uploaded frequently and with short notice. Class will be designing a banner to go on the bottom of the videos using 2 iMacs that will be provided and transferred to the school. The kids will spend a course of a year learning how to use Photoshop and iMovie in order to make the best use of these.
So we have these plaques out in the old Hall of Fame hallway outside the gym, and we're taking them all down and we're scanning them on our scanner to put them in and digitize them onto the website on TVs that we're going to have out in that hallway.
And then this is the scanner, and yeah, we're pretty much just taking the pictures and scanning them so that they can be put on the website. Another aspect of Jacket Journal is that we write stories to publish on our website. So I'm here with Mr. Hahn, and I have a few questions for him. So what are your expectations for the teams this year?
The expectations this year, obviously, compete every game. We want to win the conference, and then give ourselves a chance in the postseason.
The second question is, who are your returning players this year?
So we have Bo Bridges, a senior. We have Connor Doherty, Johnny Askew, Owen Gleason, a lot of younger guys or older guys that played when they were younger. That'll help out with our senior year.
How many teams are you planning on having this year, and how do you plan to split them up?
So we have a big freshman class, so we will, looks like we'll have a freshman team. So we'll have a freshman JV and varsity team, and then we'll split them up accordingly to skill, not age. Obviously, we started freshman last year, so just how good you are, not how old you are.
So after interviewing Mr. Hunt, what's the next step?
So the next step is we will take that information and write a story on it. So we have a Jacket Journal website that we have all of our stories on. Like the one that I wrote on cross country, and the one that they wrote on football. So it's conclusions of all of our fall sports.
Okay, so I think you guys have a business class coming next year. Along with the one
We do. We're really excited to introduce our new class next year. It's called Entrepreneurship. And the printer is really a very large part of that course. But I'm going to let Mr. Savage talk about the course, and then we'll talk to Mr. Stanford. He can talk about it.
Yeah, so super excited about the entrepreneurship class. It will be everything involved with business, starting your own business, from idea generation to developing products, to marketing, to sales, to accounting. So it will be everything that would be involved with creating, developing, running, managing the business.
When you think about this class and some of the offerings that these printers are going to bring to the table for our students in our school, just maybe some examples that here on the table: vinyl banner printing, decals, stickers. So when we talk about branding the Mount Vernon Yellow Jackets, our Jackets brand, usually we have to farm that out. So we farm it out to local businesses, local companies for our senior banners, for banners that are hung in gyms, for the stickers and decals on walls, to thinking of If an elementary school is looking to put up a, classroom signs, room signs, on numbers, this printer, has the capacity and the capability of doing those things. So, truly for us at Mount Vernon, it's an opportunity for our students through the class to learn every aspect from the business side of things to, the consumer, which could be athletics, it could be our theater. Hopefully, Mr. Savage's class is not charging us an arm and a leg for some of these banners, but knowing that there will be costs accrued with some of these banners that we're paying anyway, now we're putting right back into the products in the hands of our students here at the school so that they can learn from the class, learn the business plan, and then also do some state-of-the-art type of printing for products that we're already purchasing and using here every day. And the best part about this, I think, is, I'll turn it back over, is this was purchased through funds through a grant.
Right, Mr. Coughlin wrote this grant. It is called, and I'm going to read this so I get it right, Expanding Opportunity for Each Child grant. And we have purchased several things for the school. One of them is this printer. So it's kind of nice because it came from a grant. It's not costing us anything, and we'll be able to give students an opportunity to learn how to do a business as well as produce things and give it right back to them.
We've had multiple conversations with schools over the last year that are utilizing this technology, this type of entrepreneurship class, and the capabilities of the printer, to the point where, man, their job list of folks, whether, like I said, whether it's our Band Inspire One posters made for a theatrical performance that they have upcoming, senior banners that student athletes, Mr. Coughlin needing new signs for restrooms, whatever it may be, their job list is so great, but they still find time to reach out to community businesses as well. So our local businesses, hopefully, as we continue to develop this course, that we can potentially market that to our local businesses as well to help with their needs that they have. So we're real excited. I know Mr. Savage, Mr. Coughlin, all of us are just excited about this opportunity for our students at Mount Vernon, and look forward to what we're going to be able to do.
It's going to be great.
If you're going to be interested in the class, or you think you might be interested in the class, it'll be extremely hands-on, engaging, very active every day. So get with your guidance counselor, come ask me questions, and look forward to it.
Well, there's a lot of exciting things obviously going on at the high school, and when you start talking about the Jacket Journal, kind of bringing something back from the past, and maybe doing some print form, but also coming back in the digital age, the MTV, Mount Vernon TV, the kids have a great time with that, and they're doing morning announcements and things like that, and they're having fun, but also learning some of the really critical elements of video production and some of that editing stuff. If you noticed in the piece, and if you've been in Mount Vernon High School recently, in the lobby area, there used to be a lot of lockers that we used to have these older pictures, wonderful pictures, up on the wall. So those have all been taken down, the lockers have been removed, and some new flooring has been put in. But we certainly don't want to forget those Hall of Fame folks. And so some of these classes are taking all of that digital media, and they're going to put them on big screen TVs and let it kind of scroll through. So a way to archive it forever. And then, of course, the entrepreneurship class, the ability to kind of set up a small business and looking at kind of a niche and helping kids work through that. So certainly excited to see some of those things happening at the high school. Thank you, Mr. Coughlin, for kind of spearheading a lot of those things. So it's always good to kind of get a chance every board meeting to hear from each one of our buildings as to what they're doing, and certainly some good things going on there at the high school. I'd like to move right on into our student government report. John B. Patel, again, class president, has put together a short little 1-minute video, really sharing with us what's going on. We're kind of between seasons, so there's not a lot going on between maybe the fall and the winter quite yet, but give a note here to John B.
Hi, my name is John Patel, and I'm just going to be going over some of the things that have been going on at the school the past month. We had our powder puff game, which the seniors ended up winning, and we raised over $1,500, which is going to go towards our prom and graduation. All sports recently ended, and notably Sophia Solak finished 28th in the state, making her an all-Ohio award winner. Winter sports have begun, which includes basketball, wrestling, bowling, and swimming, which added diving this year. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m. in the theater will be the NHS induction, and Drama Club was reintroduced this year, and they will produce a spring play.
So that's kind of a quick synopsis from John D. What's going on. I mean, tomorrow night, board members, if you have an opportunity to get out and about, National Honor Society induction is always a pretty special event. So.
And is Darcy here?
Yes. I don't see Darcy tonight.
No, I didn't see. Mr. Lang. Okay, thank you. And we do have some public participation, and I think everyone knows that we have 3 minutes per person, and Shannon Quinn is the first.
Good afternoon, school board. What started out with just a simple book has turned into so much more. I come to you tonight with parents, student, and faculty concerns that have all been brought to me. It was a book that should never have been in our classroom, should never be in our library. Currently, we have 7 out of 10 top banned books in our school. They're banned from violence, sexual explicits, racism, you name it, it's in the books. We've brought me and a few other parents have brought these concerns to both Bill Cedar and Corey Coughlin in a meeting a little over 3 weeks ago. We don't feel like our voices were heard. We are not happy. We are disappointed, to say the least. From the book, it turned into what turned out to be a hostile classroom. We had a situation with a teacher who had been brought to prior to us, to Corey, how kids were feeling very uncomfortable in her class. They felt very divided. Their initial visit to meeting this teacher was her sexual preferences and how she will not tolerate any sort of joking around or slurs made towards the gay community. It just set the tone immediately with the students, very uncomfortable. Corey let us know when we were in this meeting that the parents had brought this to his attention on day 1. And here we were 2 months later and we're bringing it to his attention yet again. To me, that's not acceptable. Kids should all feel comfortable in a classroom, no matter what. And unfortunately, that's not the case. The teachers are creating a division. While having this meeting, it also came to our attention that we have a teacher Snapchatting students. I did not have the proof. I did not bring this to their attention. This was brought by one of the other parents that was in the meeting. Unfortunately, both Bill and Corey refused to act. Corey said to me, verbatim, you brought me an accusation and no proof. Snapchat, I don't know if you're aware of what Snapchat is, but it's a social media where you take the picture to send it to the sender opens it, and the receiver opens it and it's gone. It's deleted. Teachers should never, ever be Snapchatting students, but unfortunately we have one doing that. Since Bill and Corey both refused to act, I myself reported it. I went down to the police station and spoke with Detective Martine myself. She said they are investigating it. I later asked Bill, do you still have a teacher that's under an active investigation currently teaching students? And his response was, to my concern, she's not under investigation. Yet again, that's a failure to act. He should have, both of them, should have both reported to the authorities, if nothing else, to clear their teacher's name. You have parents saying that this teacher on numerous occasions is Snapchatting a group of students. That's completely inappropriate. I don't know what these messages contain. That's the police's job to figure out. That's not me to be the judge and the jury. They should have reported this and unfortunately did not. And I even said during the meeting, we're going to end up with another situation with another teacher. We just had one go away for 5 years. And that wasn't the only teacher that's had this accusation. That was just the only one that was arrested, tried, and convicted. Unfortunately, it was an accusation to them. To me, I take it serious because we don't know what's being said. Beyond that, it was brought to our attention that there's a diversity class. Nobody's aware of what's going on in this diversity. She's next. Nobody's aware of what's going on in this diversity class. It's been asked, and we're being told we don't know. I asked Corey, what are the pictures hanging on Ms. Dono's wall? He said he didn't know. I asked him, did you go look? I said, it's been brought to my attention. There's pictures on her walls that are uncomfortable with students. He said no. I said, yet again, there's another failure to act. All you have to do is walk up there and look. And you can tell it's, Shannon, it's nothing. The kids are blowing it out of proportion. Unfortunately, he doing it. He refused. We have gone down in student population from 3,800 to 3,700, according to Gary Hankins, I believe it is. Parents are pulling their kids. We're pulling our kids because it's not a safe environment. We aren't trusting the school anymore. When we bring our concerns to you guys, we're ignored. Corey then wraps it up with an email that I was made aware of, where he sent to the teachers, my mouth is dry, I apologize, to where we are one. We have teachers being attacked on social media. We all need to wear we are one to school tomorrow. It wasn't that they were being attacked. There was a situation at the school and the school was failing to act. We had no choice. We had no choice. You literally had to take a parent come in, tell you about this very disgusting book that's still in our library, and you did nothing. So yeah, I took it to social media and I will continue to take it to social media until we clean up our schools. These kids deserve a good general education. We are the parents. We shouldn't be asking them their gender and their sexual preferences. And I want an explanation to why Bill Cedar approved that. Because when I read our policies, it said it had to go through Bill first. And it was under a climate survey. What is your gender and your sexual preference? Still, there's no answers. These are inappropriate. The books in our library are inappropriate. If they were books, if they were movies, the kids wouldn't even be allowed to watch them without us signing for it. I have to sign for my 5th grader to take sex ed, but yet her teacher hands her a book with sex in it. Where does that make sense? We're suspending them for 3 days for dropping an F-bomb, but we're handing them a book with the N-word and sexually explicit things about a kid masturbating all day. We're not being consistent. We're sending a very mixed message, and it is no wonder our kids are confused. We shouldn't be encouraging them to read or handing them books that they can't even, if you can't put it on a movie screen in front of them, then how are you handing them a book with it? How is that appropriate? If you're suspending them for dropping F-bombs, but yet you're handing them books with F-bombs and N-words and all kinds of explicits, where does that make sense? How is that okay? It's not. So what's happened? Our parents are pulling us. They're pulling them. And I'm like, stop pulling your kids. Come to the meetings. Make you guys do better. Make you guys make our teachers better. Because when they fail, we fail. We're all one. But Corey took it as we are all one, as in faculty versus parents.
Klein.
This would be appropriate for tonight. I'll start with, I think what I need to start doing in these schools is start with scripture when we start these meetings. This is what I've been doing. So we'll go to Matthew 19 tonight, verse 14. Matthew 19:14, in case you want to jot this down. But Jesus said, suffer the little children and forbid them not to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of heaven. And he laid his hands on them and departed thence. That's what we have on the ice cream truck as we run around the city streets, giving out free ice cream to little kids and sharing the gospel with little kids. Now look what we're sharing with the little kids in our schools. People, this is the grassroots movement coming across the United States. The books are getting exposed. I wasn't even going to speak on the books tonight, but thank you for bringing that up. 10 years ago, we did this. We went through, there's probably 100, then there was 100 books in the middle school and at least 100 books in the high school. And there was some in the elementary too. In the elementary, and 3rd and 4th graders can read the book, The King and the King and My Two Daddies. What are we doing? So and I'm going to tell you right now, I believe there's some good people in the Mount Vernon schools. I'm not against everybody that's in the schools. And I mentioned this at East Knox the other night, and Pastor Matt agreed with me, the board president down there. I said, you know, I bet almost every one of you sitting on the board believe in God. Probably attend a church somewhere in the community. But yeah, we let this nonsense go on in our schools. It's happening everywhere across America. The National School Board Association is corrupt. The National Education Association is corrupt. The things that they stand for are ridiculous. We have religions in our schools now today. I ask that you boot out the religions being all the isms, secular humanism, the stuff that we are indoctrinating these kids with. That's why they're growing up and needing medication, overdosing, suicide, having to go see shrinks. We're messing them up. They don't know what to believe. And yes, and I'll share with a book that was in the middle school 10 years ago. I pulled it off the shelves. It was called How to Have Anal Sex. The book was in there. And they cringed. 250 people in that school board meeting that night cringed. Mount Vernon radio station was there, and you've seen the guy in the video. They recorded this. And the guy sit back there and just cringe. Adam Taylor was the guy. I had to find that video. As I read the excerpt out of the book, it said, if you're going to have anal sex, start with a finger or two before you proceed to a second toy. That book was in there. And then I was confronted by a pastor outside the door that that's not the way to handle that, Jeff. How else do you handle it except expose it and rebuke it? I'm just asking that we clean up these schools. Think of the children. And we're going to stay on this until we get it. It usually is, I believe your time is up. Well, I believe you people's time is up. I'm not saying you need to be fired, but I'm saying change your ways. Look at what's really going on in our colleges are indoctrinated. And what we're bringing out of the colleges is terrible that we're putting in as teachers. It's a new wave coming. And it's going to get worse and worse as we keep going until the church stands up and says, enough is enough.
Thank you. We have an item of approval for board. And I don't think we need to do anything about that. Then additions and deletions.
Right. We do have board items for discussion tonight. We have one item for board approval. It's recommended the Board of Education grant a new 3-year administrative contract to Gary Hankins commencing on August 1st, 2022 and ending July 31st, 2025.
I would entertain a motion to approve that item.
I would be happy to make that motion.
I'm sorry, what?
I said I would be happy to make that motion.
Thank you. And do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Thompson. And would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Ms. Regola-Dye.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you.
We have a number of items for addition for tonight's agenda. In section 6B, we recommend an increase to the rate of pay for district substitutes and ESCA. You'll see it in that section. Also in item 9B, section 5 is a district window and door projects and an architectural firm of Fannie and Howie to do that bid process. Those two items are additions tonight.
Thank you. And your superintendent's report.
Under superintendent's report, I have a district update as I've done in the past. So on my district update for tonight, I want to have a quick district update about our high school novel that was talked about, our jacket substitute job fair, COVID update, our educational advisory committee, an OSBA presentation, and some special thank yous. So as was mentioned tonight, there was a book that was brought to our attention called The Absolute True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. Parental concerns were shared with administration and excerpts were posted on social media. A meeting was called by Mrs. Quinn, and we met with her the very next day. So this assertion that we never have this communication is ridiculous. We met with Mrs. Quinn and a variety of other parents, listened to their concerns. We also had several meetings with the teachers involved at the same time. So we're meeting in a timely manner. It's just not always how quickly some people want things to be. it was determined after some review that the novel would be discontinued and not included as required reading. What was the timeline for this? It took place within a day. And so the thought that we're not listening or we're not looking at this is absurd.
It was brought to your attention in the morning. You didn't get posted.
You don't have before, Mrs. Quinn. I have before, you had your time. The book was removed and discontinued within a day after our meeting. Considerable discussion was had relative to the protocols and procedures for the selection of the appropriate reading material in this case. Moving forward, all required reading novels must be presented to the entire department for critique, not just two individuals making a decision. The ELA department chair will share results and/or concerns with building principals and/or curriculum directors for approval. At the beginning of each school year, syllabus will contain the titles of the required novels to be read in class for parental review. Alternative selections will also be made available to parents if they should choose not to read that specific novel. So we were presented with a concern, and within a couple of days, we found it necessary to discontinue the book. During that short period of time, I had a chance to read this novel. And I can tell you there are parts of this book that I cannot defend. There are parts of the book that certainly had some merit. I found myself, as I read the book, finding something that I didn't believe was appropriate on a certain page because I had the ability to look at excerpts that were posted all over the internet. So I went in with certainly a very, very focused mindset on things that I thought would be inappropriate. And then I could find myself reading 14, 15 pages in, and there's nothing. And then all of a sudden I find another section that I find to be more inappropriate. The sad part about this particular novel is it has some merits. The theme was not a bad theme. The theme was about an Indian living on a reservation who wanted to make a better life and wanted to get off of the reservation and realize the pros and cons relative to that. So while the novel had merits, the concerns to me outweighed those merits. And because of the language and some of the sexually explicit material, within 2 days, we decided as a group to discontinue this particular novel.
But you're 60 years old and have the cognitive ability to make that
Please
decision.
continue, Mr.
These are
Seeley.
15-year-olds. They don't have that cognitive ability. There's a big difference.
So
Mrs. Quinn, this is not a public meeting. This is
But
a,
he's not telling the whole story. You gotta put it all out there.
This is typical, and it's unfortunate. We did act on these things. We are moving forward in a positive direction. And you know what? These teachers, in hindsight, as we met with them, realized that in the totality, when you put all the things together, it was not a good selection. And we cannot defend this particular book.
And it's in your.
But I will not condemn these teachers. These are good teachers who made a mistake, and I support these teachers.
Good teachers. That create a hostile environment for the students.
And so as we move forward in my update, I do have a COVID update to share here. So as we've kind of gone to a mask to stay, test to play idea, we currently, as of today, have 21 active students with COVID-19. You're going to see about 4 buildings that have nobody. The high school has currently 3 active cases out of almost 1,000 students. And so we continue to kind of work through the challenges. What we are finding is that most of our positive cases are still coming from family situations where they're getting it from home. I will say that when we instituted the quarantine students, and of course this is down here kind of in the way, if I move this out of the way, we currently have 61 students who have become close contact, but because of the new quarantine guidelines, can remain in school and with a mask, provided they're symptom-free, and they're getting checked every single day when they come to school. So I think that's been a positive impact, really relative towards our COVID situation. The Jacket Job Fair is coming up tomorrow on November 16th. Like a lot of businesses, we continue to struggle to find substitutes. whether it be teachers or cooks or custodians, bus drivers, even ESC aides. So we decided to hold a jacket jobs hiring event from 10:30 to 11:30 tomorrow at the field house, 5 to 6:30 in the evening. And again, learn about district-wide subbing opportunities and complete new hire paperwork alongside with an HR professional. We're so serious about making sure that we keep this pool strong that we're willing to pay for applicants' ODE fees and background checks through December 31st of 2021. Flexible schedules, value to the community, extra income. And again, we're looking for all of those folks there. You will see in your addition to the board, some sub rates and also some teacher sub rate increases. I've listed those on the side, but those are in your board agenda in a different section. But teacher subs will move to $110, classified subs $13, bus drivers $15, and then all ESC aides and ESCA subs will go to $13. So we're hopeful that we have some folks show up and that we can begin to develop that pool of substitutes. This is a committee that has been in place since 2007. It is an educational advisory committee. We have our first meeting coming up on Wednesday, November 17th. This group meets multiple times a year. We have parents who are represented from all 8 buildings, and we have some students representing both the middle school and high school. We have administrators and board members on this educational advisory committee. Things we talk about are curriculum, district vision, how we use our federal funds and ARP, our CCIP and Title I, District 1 plan, PBIS and SEL, and any educational updates, especially those that come, from the law side of things. So our group will meet on this coming Wednesday, and then of course we'll set up meetings for the rest of the year. And again, that group's been going on for quite some time. Unbeknownst maybe to folks, when we bring on new curriculum, be it a new textbook adoption, this committee gets an opportunity to see what those documents are, see what those textbooks, and we always put those documents on review for our parents for 30 days prior to adopting them. I don't know if that's something that people know a lot of. The Ohio School Boards Association had their annual conference here recently. I had an opportunity with a couple community partners to share at that event. We had over 60 come to that event. For the board's purpose, when you get in and push play for this, if you select a presentation at the top right, you can see the slide deck that went with that presentation. It's about 48 slides. And so it was really an opportunity to share the Education Gateway Project and all the partnerships that were created and the opportunities that presented themselves through that information. So I was pleased to be able to do that on behalf of the board. And we had a lot of people reach out to us afterwards. Finally, I had a number of thank yous to share. First, to the village of Gambier. And I know sometimes there's been some frustration, but they had the grace to meet with us at their last village council meeting. And we shared with them the district's desire to be unified as a district and to be operate as one. And through those conversations, they granted an exemption for Wigan Street Elementary to operate in the same fashion. So I want to say thanks to the village council there for hearing our concerns and our wishes and granting us that exemption. Also want to say thanks to Knox Public Health. We continue to have vaccination clinics at Energy Fieldhouse. This past Friday, we had our staff have the opportunity to get boosters. We had about 180 staff members attend, as well as clinics for students and other adults as well. So thanks to them. Our Mount Vernon Health Aides, with the added quarantine guidelines, it puts a lot more impetus upon them to really check kids daily and to make sure they're wearing their mask when they need to be. And they've done a really nice job, and I want to thank them. James Smith and Brian Ball. James is vice president at MVNU, and Brian Ball was a city engineer. They joined me at the OSBA Capital Conference And the three of us kind of tag teamed that event. Much appreciate them. And then just a final thank you to our employees, from our teachers to our custodial staff. It's been a difficult year and a half. And in light of some of the new division and politicalness that's going on, I think our employees sometimes feel under a lot of pressure and under a microscope, overly criticized, demonized in some cases. And I thank our employees for the job they do every day.
And are you going to share the calendar?
Yeah, I clicked out of it accidentally, I'm sorry. I think I clicked back into the wrong board meeting. There it is. There it is. So every year we begin conversations about the district calendar. This meeting will serve as our initial meeting relative to the district calendar. It's hard to believe that we're actually talking about the 2022-2023. I was reminded at our last superintendent's meeting in the county that everyone is beginning to ramp up. So this is our hearing and review section of the meeting. By legislative requirements, at least 30 days prior to adopting a school calendar, the board must hold a public hearing on the calendar addressing topics that include but are not limited to total number of hours, length of the school day, and beginning and ending dates. These are the district hours required. Grades K through 6 are 910 hours, grades 7, 12, 1,001. We do deduct some hours due to parent-teacher conferences and in-service days, so actual hours of instruction in hours is going to be related there. That's what we currently have now. So you can see we're well over the 886. And then, of course, the equivalents as you take a look there. The 2021-22 instructional calendar saw us starting on August 19th this year. We end on Thursday, May 26th. The teacher's calendar year is Friday, August 13th, and the last day is May 27th. Student instructional hours are 6 hours and 30 minutes in grades K to 5 and 6 hours and 50 minutes in grades 6 to 12. Some historical calendar considerations as we look into next year is starting on an abbreviated week. We generally don't like to start with a full 5-day week, one for the kids' sake and two for everyone else, just kind of getting back into the groove. We're currently in a 4 9-week grading period or 2 semesters. We have parent-teacher conferences, and of course, we have a number of holidays in there. And then we try to provide in-service and professional development days before the school year and some into the school year. So when to begin school? As I've started to look at some of the calendars from around the county, most schools are beginning around the middle of August. In-service days are yet to be determined. It's been proven that in-service days and kind of one-shot moments don't always have the lasting impact that you'd like to have. So we'd like to look at some opportunities where we can combine a little bit more time there. Thanksgiving break traditionally is 3 days for Mount Vernon City Schools. The surrounding districts tend to take a 4-day Thanksgiving Day break. I think they tend to do that because hunting season always begins after that holiday weekend. Christmas holiday, the winter break holiday, is a little different next year. It's on a Sunday. So do we take 2 full weeks or do we attend school a couple days into that week? And so as you take a look at that, we're starting to get a little bit of a mixed message from some of our county participants. And so we'll need to look at that as well. New Year's Day is also on a Sunday. So do we return to school on a Monday, the day after New Year's, or do we look to kind of flex that week? Traditionally in Mount Vernon, a 2-week winter break is preferred by staff and parents. Spring break, most districts have placed spring break as we look into next year, the first week of April. It coincides with Good Friday and the Easter holiday season. When it's early in April, it makes sense to kind of work those two things in there together. It's when it becomes late in April that it becomes a bit more of a challenge, and we move it towards the last end of March. And then, of course, when to end school, last day for students, May or June, graduation and Memorial Day. Memorial Day this next year is May 29th. We do have some other considerations. We have union contracts to look at, transparency rules, new calendar cooperation rules between our career tech or our career center. So let today, November 15th, 2021, be our board meeting date. And then when we come back in December, we'll share with the board an option or options, and then we'll let that sit out there for community to look at. And then we'll come back at our January board meeting and approve the 22-23 calendar. Okay. Any questions or comments on either the board update or the calendar?
Question, is there a link to the possible calendar for 22-23 yet? Do we have the actual calendar dates to look at?
I do, and I can share those with the board. There's not one here on this document, but we have passed out what would be typically the school kind of full year calendar with 22-23 dates on them.
Thank you.
So we'll meet with both unions to begin to kind of consider what those look like.
Thank you.
And Mr. Seda, I understand you are working with the county schools as well. Is that correct? To try to coordinate.
Yes, we are. Yeah. You know, the one difference I think we'll see from one of our county partners, East Knox, will be starting much later this year because of their new high school. And so they're probably going to start almost at the end of August. But right now, all the other county schools will probably be starting a little bit more in the middle. And then the last item for information is the expiration of term of office for Career Center Board of Education for Dr. Bennett. I have two items for board, three items, actually, four items for board approval tonight. Under this business, Resolution 2821, employment of substitute teachers. The Ohio Department of Education has given us the option to hire teacher substitutes that are a little bit outside of the requirements that have been in the past because they realize the shortage that exists. We have added some modifications to that Ohio Department of Education language. The pieces that we added was that the applicant needed to be of an age appropriate to the grade level in which they teach. And we also put in that we would require some in-service training prior to them stepping into the classroom as a sub. Item 2 is state nutritional standards. We just have to verify that we're following the Ohio Department of Education nutritional guidelines. Item 3 is home and community school participants. And item 4 is something I mentioned earlier as a recommendation to increase the rate of pay for district substitutes in the SEAs as listed. Those items for your approval.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve those 4 items.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Goroday. Were there any questions? Hearing none, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Ms. Regola-Dye.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you.
I have one additional item in this section for approval, and that's the appointment to the Knox County Career Center Board of Education. A recommended motion to appoint Dr. Marjorie Bennett as the Knox County Career Center Board of Education representative for Mount Vernon City Schools.
Make a motion.
I second that.
Thompson. Thank you, Mrs. Jackson. And are there any questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Ms. Regola-Dye.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
I will abstain. And motion carried. Thank you. And student achievement liaison report. The success for this month. The first article is on teachers' music, boost math. And a first grade teacher in Texas brings a keyboard to class to inject music and subjects throughout the day. And he has noted that students have scored better in math and spelling since they started using lesson-based tunes. And initially, he was writing words to the songs. And recently, the students also have been writing the words, and they came up with something called Double Trouble, which is about adding or doubling numbers. And he said from the moment we started singing, students were engaged from the beginning of the class to the very end. And music helps students learn material, the parents said, and that their children absolutely loved the class and said how much fun learning was. So I know all teachers want kids to love learning. The second article is on high school students on paths to college careers. And this is a school district in Colorado, which is growing its own teachers. They have students work 20 hours each week in elementary school classrooms, and they actually pay them through the Future Educator pathway, and that prepares them for careers as classroom teachers. And the sophomores apply and participate their junior and senior years. And concurrently, they take 24 credit hours at a community college, and I believe there is no charge for that. So they are hoping that these students who graduate from college will come back and teach in their district. So I know that teaching field is looking for additional teachers, so this was a creative way to do that. The fourth item is how to create a story walk for students. And this teacher talked about a solitary reading, creating a story walk and making it a dynamic activity by engaging students' minds and bodies. And she's a librarian in Washington State. She offers tips for creating a story walk and selecting the right book, with pictures being ideal for the project. She also had some suggestions for extension activities, such as asking students to rewrite the endings just for fun. And the reason I felt this was pretty interesting is because we do have a storybook, Wolf Run, as many of you maybe have already been there. Their trail is actually having a ribbon cutting and an opening celebration Friday, November 19th from noon to 1. And that's out on Yaga Road. And I know some people have already taken their children through that. We have some friends who've taken their grandkids, but we in Mount Vernon even have that. So that's pretty cool. And then the research article really is comparing the 4-day school week with a 5-day school week. And the RAND Corporation did a study, and they found that this has been adopted, the 4-day week, by 1,600 US school districts as of 2019-2020, and that they were gaining favor among parents and students. So the RAND Corporation did some research regarding the growth in the students, and they found that the students' achievement was significantly higher when they went 5 days a week, which is probably to be expected, but I thought that was interesting. So, are there any questions? Thank you. So moving ahead.
And one item for board approval tonight in this particular section, it's an overnight extended student trip to East Central Indiana Classic Tournament. It's our wrestling team that'll be traveling across state for this tournament, and that needs your board approval.
Yeah, I would entertain a motion for that item.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Fuladai. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. Were there any questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola-Dye.
Yes.
Mr. Workman. Yes. Mr. Thompson. Yes. Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. And we have a financial report from our treasurer, and I'm so glad that you are still with us, still going to be with us.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
With your new contract.
Mr. Seer, you can open the financial report. I'll be really brief in that one. As the board knows, the changes in our foundation funding, if you go to the next page, haven't kicked in yet. So this part of my job, the twice a month it comes, I'm literally going in there and sometimes changing something from 44 cents to 43 cents. That's literally the extent of the changes. But it's in December, it's supposed to, we're supposed to see the fruit of all the efforts that are going on, and this will change probably fairly drastically. So I just wanted you to be able to see that. And more importantly, we can move on to the 5-year forecast. You can scroll to the second page. Blow that up a little bit there, Mr. Cedar. If you scroll down just a little bit more. Focus on the cash balances. We were at a point where we had a $4 million carryover at the end of a fiscal year, and we were deficit spending at about $1 million. The influx of federal funding has allowed us to change that. We probably would have been on the ballot, if not this year, next year, due to the funding and the ways that we've been able to utilize that. And I'm going to point those out in a minute. You can see that we have some strong cash balances, and we'll be able to hold off on deficit spending for several years. And the ways that we've utilized these, that when the ESSER funds came to us, there were several things we could do with them, and we've done a lot. But the key things in terms of the forecast were we were allowed to do other activities necessary to maintain the operation and continuity of services in the local education agency. And this included continuing to employ existing staff of the local education agency. Well, had we not had these funds, we would have been on the ballot. Had that not been successful, we would have been obviously in a position where we would have had to let go of certain positions. So due to that influx of cash, and best we know that that part's over, there isn't going to be any more cash. So I'll call it a one-time event, but it came in sections. We're in a better place, at least for the next couple of years. If we're wise with the funds we have, we shouldn't have a need to go to the ballot anytime in the next few years. So if there's any questions about this, I will say that I mentioned we were deficit spending. I mentioned where our cash balance was. Talked about the influx of money and how it's basically allowed us to offset some salaries. We've created some new positions with ESSER 3, which are supposed to close the learning gap from the Zoom learning that we did. Those will be temporary, and those will phase out when that money is gone. Hopefully we will close those learning gaps. And as you can see, we're in a good financial position as long as we don't do anything frivolous.
Very good news.
I don't think there's any donations or anything to read, so.
Okay, we'll move forward then, and we have a legislative liaison report, and if you'd like the microphone.
Yeah, we'll need to vote on that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I would entertain a motion to adopt the financial report and the 5-year forecast.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Lodi. Do I have a second?
Awesome. Mr. Workman can have this,
Mr. Workman, okay.
but I would make a
And
comment.
again, I apologize. I'm so interested in your report. I just went right in. Okay, would you call the roll, please?
I would like to reiterate, having had the opportunity on numerous occasions, even back to our work sessions that we had, I don't know, a few months ago, and being able to see these ESSER funds come in. I really am appreciative of your office, Gary, for coming up with ideas on how to take those dollars and use them very wisely across our district. You're right. We were headed in the wrong direction. This gave us a reprieve for a period of time, but never wants to consider it as a long-time fix because this money goes away. So I wouldn't want anybody to get any misconceived ideas that this is ongoing, but it does, for the most part, extend us out to 2024, if I'm correct. When I look at that money as the timeline on those funds, right? So hats off. Thank you very much for how you guys have navigated through those dollars and how to figure out through all the federal monotony to figure out how to apply them to best help Mount Vernon. It's a big deal. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Would you call the roll now, please?
Ms. Regola Dye.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. And
Thank you. The legislative report, I'm going to focus on the first link there, which ironically is from the link of OSBA. New legislation was introduced. HB 450 would allow the development of solar projects in different communities. HB 454 would prohibit certain procedures to alter a minor child's sex. It would also prohibit schools personnel from encouraging or coercing a student to withhold information from the parents regarding gender perceptions. HB 455 provides the opportunity for a concealed handgun licensee or qualified military member to avoid charges for carrying a weapon in a prohibited place. HB 458 would eliminate the August special election unless it is held to nominate or elect candidates for the U.S. House of Representatives and to allow a school district whose entire territory is in that said congressional district to put a levy on the August ballot. HB 459 would prohibit a restricted offender from being an employee, etc., around minor children. HB 465 would require the director of the Ohio Department of Transportation, ODOT, to notify any school district which may be impacted by major road projects, which we had recently with local city streets. HB 467 would remove a community school from the term as a public school and a for-profit operator or management company to become a nonprofit and to be audited by the state auditor. Finally, HB 477 would allow a student to decline certain mandatory vaccinations. And the other report has a few other things, but nothing that I'm going to spend any time on. Does anyone have any questions or comments or ideas for me to send to our representative? Okay, thank you.
A number of items under business services for your approval tonight. First are a variety of facility requests. The Good News Club right here at Twin Oak Elementary starting in November. We've got the Colt Football League, the Mount Vernon Basketball League, and the Knox Community Jazz Orchestra also wanting to use our facilities, and those will be free of charge. Item 2 is taking us back just a step. We had some projects that were bid and accepted, and we need to recognize those. A district paving project. Item 2, Pleasant Street ceiling and lighting project. We also had a district fencing project that took place this summer. And then item number 5, which was an addition to your agenda tonight, is to enter into an agreement with Fannie and Howie Architects. They're our architects of record to do a bidding process for us for windows and doors at several elementaries and the high school. Those 5 items for your approval.
I would entertain a motion to approve those 5 items.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Gulladye. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mrs. Jackson. I did have a question. You mentioned there was no charge for any of the facilities. I thought there was for the cafeteria, use of the cafeteria for a custodian.
Which one, please?
The second.
Colt Football League banquet. Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. That is a Sunday. And because it's a day where we don't have any custodians on duty, they would be required to pay for those custodians.
I thought maybe that had changed. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions?
Just a comment that one of the music teachers said that I needed to get into Pleasant Street to see the ceiling, that how great it looked. And I haven't gone yet because of my health restrictions. So I'm just delighted that my old music room has a new ceiling. So, thank you.
And actually, that got done both at Dan Emmett Elementary and at Pleasant Street.
That was very much needed.
Yes, it was.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola Dye.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Workman. Yes. Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. And there are no student service items, so we'll move forward to certificated licensed staff personnel.
Thank you. In this section, we have no items for information, number of very traditional items for board approval. The employment of this year, 3-year contract, retroactive to August 1. We have the retirement of Mindy Jones, effective at the end of the school year. She's been a valuable member of our staff for a long time. We have a resignation, substitute teacher, and a variety of supplemental contracts and volunteers for your approval tonight.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve those items as read.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Gulladye. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. Were there any questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola-Dye.
Yes.
Mr. Workman. Yes. Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. And classified staff.
Under classified staff, we have no items for information tonight, a number of items for board approval. Again, somewhat standard items, a number of employments of a bus driver, several cooks, 2-year contracts and substitute employment with 1 resignation in item 4. So those 4 items for your approval tonight.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve those items.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Regola-Dye. Do I have a second?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Were there any questions? Would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Regola-Dye.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Workman. Yes. Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. And board member comments. Ms. Regola-Dye, would you like to begin for us?
Yes, thank you. Every month I try to think of something that is even more positive about our great public schools. And I think the high school video took the thunder from anything that I might say positive beyond what our children are doing and the excellent leadership that we have of the staff. And the children are learning, they're growing, and as the instructor said, they're upping their game. And I couldn't be more proud to be an alumni of our great Mount Vernon City Schools and to be part of this body and to be part of a community that continues to support us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson.
I have nothing to add tonight. So.
Thank you. Mr. Workman.
I would just like to piggyback on Mr. Cedar. He had sent some thank yous out and to the Gambier Village Council. I was fortunate enough to attend that. And I also want to thank them for listening. Mr. Cedar did a great job presenting as well. Got a lot of good questions from the council members, and they were kind enough to grant the exemption, and just thankful that they did that for us.
Thank you. Mrs. Getzmann.
I have nothing other than we are continuing to move forward, and I appreciate all the staff. And as Mr. Cedar said earlier, the health techs that are working diligently in our school. So thank you to all of them.
Thank you. I would just like to commend Mr. Cedar and those partners that presented at the OSBA conference. This is not something that they just submitted and were accepted, but there's actually a vetting process. So their presentation was selected out of many that were submitted. So we're very proud of you and thank you for doing that and showcasing our district. So makes Mount Vernon look very good. So we appreciate that for representing us well. And with that, I thank the board members and all of you for attending this evening. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Rosai. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, and Mr. Cedar, did you want to say anything before we?
I think we're good.
Okay. You'll call the roll then, please.
Ms. Regola-Dye.
Yes.
Mrs. Getzmann.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Workman.
Yes.
Dr. Bennett.
Yes, and we are adjourned. Thank you.